You are now listening to Killing the Void with Andrew Parks, a podcast series.
Patrick, do you want me to call you Pat or Voss or?
You can call me Pat or Patrick, whichever you'd like to.
Okay. I'd like to thank you for being here. I'm just adding all these podcast groups on Facebook, and I think that's how I found you.
Yes.
Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, the Facebook groups are a great way to network along with like a LinkedIn. Facebook is a great way to network, especially with podcasters.
Yeah. I like your setup too. Mine's kind of plain. Mine just looks like an office.
Well, you know what? And I can't take credit for this. You have to thank my fiance Devo from Rumor Has It. She has a cover band out here in Chicago, and she set up my entire setup. She knows I love the Cubbies. She has the over here on the side is all the 2016 World Series champion Cubs baseball cards. Over here's a few like newspaper clippings, and we've got the crosstown rivalry rug.
Oh, nice. So, what is her band like? What genre?
She does pop and rock music from about 80s and newer. So they're doing they go around Chicagoland area. Normally they don't travel outside of Chicagoland. Now there are a few bigger bands that really do, that are cover bands. They travel, across state lines, but they are one of the biggest ones here in the Midwest.
Wow. So is that the guy you had on your podcast show? Is he part of the band? I can't remember his name.
No, there's a couple guys that I had from another big band out here, Seventh Heaven, I did an interview with them for my old show, the Honesty Podcast, and that was in the water at a beach in St. Martin. We were on a cruise with Royal Caribbean, and we were out in the water with my iPhone, doing an interview.
That's a beautiful area. Did you have fun on the cruise?
Very much so. Week-long cruises once a year. It's a good deal.
All right, so let's get into this. What were you doing before podcasting, or still do, and what got you into this? Like, what motivated you? Was it Joe Rogan or another sports podcaster?
No, funny enough, it was actually my father.
Oh, wow.
My father has been involved, or had been involved in radio for almost 20 years. He is involved with not only being on air, but he was also doing cutting commercials for another business outside of that, and also selling ad airtime to other businesses. So he did a few things. So as a child, I would listen to him cut commercials and, be on whatever it was. Let's say it's here in Chicago, it's WGN. So for him, it would be, you're listening to WGN Radio, 720 AM, and I would listen to that. And as a kid with a high voice, trying to imitate that probably sounded really funny. But then when my voice finally dropped, I sound quite a bit like him now.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see where this takes me.
Yeah, you actually have a really good radio voice. Do you put a little emphasis into that, or is this just natural?
A little bit of bass. I dropped my throat down a little bit for bass,
okay.
But no, this is my regular speaking voice.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was listening to your podcast, and I was like, dang, he's actually pretty good. He could be on like a radio show or like a sports news network. You actually know a lot too about sports.
I did sports radio out for a little while out in the suburbs of Chicago. And then when they decided not to let me bring my original variation of my show, that is now JCT Podcast, which is actually, we can talk about in a few minutes, which is transitioning to an update show very soon. I started my show. My first show in 2014 was called The Late Night Mix-Up.
Mm-hmm.
And I gained 24,000 Twitter followers in the first month.
Wow.
I had the opening niche, though, because I used what used to be owned by Twitter, which was the experiment called Blab. And Blab was a social community. You could have 4 people in boxes. You could be live and streaming right to YouTube and Twitter and everything else. So Blab really launched my first show. I then tried to make that show become a reality on the weekends for my radio station that I was working for. They said it wasn't in their demographic to launch this kind of this station or that kind of show. So I handed in my 2 weeks notice and kept on doing my show.
Oh, wow. And so what did that turn into? Why did you quit that? Are you still doing it?
No, I'm currently doing my show. So the late night mix-up ended. As a side note, I suffer from type 1 bipolar disorder and anxiety.
Oh, okay.
And so that does come with a lot of dips in mood and depression. So when I was having the late night mix up and it was successful, eventually I had one of those huge dips and I walked away. And I walked away from the show long enough that nobody wanted to come back and watch. So I had to try to rebrand, and thus became the second variation, which was Honesty Podcast. I did a few really good interviews with some entrepreneurs and some people that I met from Blab at the time. And then I made my way into what is now JCT Podcast, where I've had probably some of the biggest interviews I have ever had to date.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, because you had some pretty big names on there. Just going through your podcast list, and I was like, wow, how did he get these people on his show? You know, it's like, I was looking, you only had like, for JCT, you only had like 20 episodes. I'm like, well, how's he getting these guys? Do you just bug them? Do you just like email them a lot?
No. So what I did was, like I said, there was LinkedIn tools, right? There's LinkedIn tools. You have, with Facebook, you have the Facebook groups that you can join, podcast groups. But then with LinkedIn, I can link in with MMA fighters. I can link in with coaches. I can link in with former baseball and football players and sports players. So I was able to do that because of my prior experience already in radio. So they saw that I already worked for a station, that I do a sports show, and they're willing to give it a chance. So they link in with you to link in to make better connections. Well, then those LinkedIn connections lead to other connections. So now you're able to make, like Conor McGregor's agent, Audiatar.
Yeah.
Is one of my connections.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that would have never happened had I not started on LinkedIn and started working in radio or even doing my own sports show. So there's things like that. But then you also have the biggest interview I've had to date. Well, the most watched interview. I'll say the most watched. Biggest to me would have been the physicist, Dr. Lawrence Krauss, who I admire greatly. But that's to me personally. It is the second highest viewed interview on my show on YouTube. But my top viewed show is Coach John Kavanagh, who is a coach for SBG Ireland, Straight Blast Gym Ireland.
Yeah.
And that is Conor McGregor's coach.
Yeah, I saw the episode. It was a pretty good episode.
That was my biggest one.
And you knew your stuff, man. I was like, listening to you talk, I'm like, wow, he knows his shit. Excuse my language. But so LinkedIn, I don't even know what LinkedIn is. I guess I'm behind. I'm just starting out, like I said.
Okay.
Is that like let's see, let me think of the word. I know like where I live, there's a lot of groups starting up where you trade like references and they try to market you and you market them. Is it something kind of like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, it's even in the name. It's linking people. It's making sure that you're networking with people. Networking. Regardless if it's for business or, it's mostly for business. But like for me, I do voiceover work as well. So I can ask people, hey, does your company need a voicemail? Does your podcast need an intro and outro? Do you have a radio station that needs a station ID? You know, I can do those in 10 seconds for you, literally on first try, from home and send it to you. So it's like, working with people on LinkedIn has really expanded who I've been able to get in contact with. And like you were asking earlier too, LinkedIn is one of the only reasons why I got Coach Kavanagh on the show in the first place, because I was the week of the Mayweather fight. And I hate to boast this, but I do this a lot because it makes me feel good. The week of the Mayweather-McGregor boxing match, I was the only podcaster outside of syndicated, either the Mac Life or ESPN or like Ariel Helwani's show on FS1 or whatever that was. Yeah. I was the only non-associated podcaster to get Coach Kavanagh on the week of the fight.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I would think it'd be almost impossible too. So
it was damn near impossible.
He was the one that contacted you first, or you contacted him?
I contacted him. So I had a mixed martial artist, an amateur guy on, Ross Edmonds. I have to give a shout out to Ross. He did a great interview. He was the first interview for the starting off of that week before the fight. And then there were people DMing me on Twitter saying, I want somebody closer to the fight. All these amateur guys giving their predictions and these boxing guys, but they're nowhere close to this fight. You know, they're not part of the team. Yeah. So then I tweeted at Coach Kavanagh and said, hey, I'd love to have you on the show. People are sounding off. So then he decided to, and I guess like he said during the interview, tone is lost in text. What he was talking about, the reference that I was making in that interview, if you watch the interview, the reference I was making was about the Twitter post. I tweeted at him. He tweeted back, "Sorry, kid, you don't have enough subscribers. Keep grinding." I got mad. And I let him know through not only a response YouTube video, but also through tweets, that where I had come from and what I have done and who I've worked for before, minus the suburban radio station, who I've worked for before, and don't judge a book by its cover, that really kind of ticked me off. So then the internet went crazy, and there were tweets coming from all over. There was DMs coming to me. You should kill yourself, kid. You're not even supposed to step into the same realm as Coach Kavanaugh. There's other people saying, why don't you give the kid a chance? Like, for 24 straight hours, craziness. 24 hours later, I see a tweet that says, is this thing still going? It's Coach Kavanaugh. I can't believe this is still going. Okay, kid, name a time and a place, and I'll come on the show. That's all it took, was one day of craziness on Twitter, and Coach Kavanaugh agreed.
I think it's kind of funny he's calling you kid. How old are you?
30. 30. Yeah. Well, at the time I did the interview, I was 28.
Oh, okay. And how old is he? Do you know? He didn't look too old.
Kavanaugh, I believe, is in his mid-40s. He's in his early to mid-40s. He's not that old, but then he's coaching a guy in Conor McGregor who is my age.
Yeah.
Conor and I are both 30.
Oh, so I see his perspective then. Perspective, yeah. Shoot. How many people does he train? I think he said in the podcast, right? Yeah, he had a lot.
Many. And there's some new ones on the way. If you check him out at Coach, and I hate to give this plug, but if you check him out at Coach Kavanaugh on Instagram, he has posted some recent pictures of some new trainees that are supposed to be hot stuff that possibly you may see on the Bellator or UFC scene in the near future.
Wow. I heard a rumor going around that McGregor might quit. Is he going to quit, retire?
He was talking about retiring, and then Khabib said, "Screw you, I want a rematch." And so maybe, if not by end of this year, start of next year, we will probably see McGregor and Khabib part 2.
Oh, wow. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Khabib's a beast, man. He's just a beast. I don't know. It'll be a good fight anyways. No matter.
Well, he's still undefeated right now, but he also beat a nobody for the title. And then when he stomped Conor the way he did, then people, I think, started taking notice, because this is a guy who the UFC has been behind in McGregor for the last few years. He comes up from Ireland. He's whooping everybody in Ireland. He's a 2-belt champion over there. And he comes over here and does the same thing. Yeah. And so the hype around him was unbelievable. And then he goes and fights Floyd Mayweather, the only undefeated, like the best, supposedly best boxer of all time, one of. And just comes back and gets stomped by Khabib. So it's I think he probably has 2 fights.
I think it was kind of like his kryptonite, though, because they have a different style in MMA. I think he just, I don't know. I think he needs to train more against that style or adopt a little bit of it.
I would think so. If he could learn how to not gas out and not be, and I hate to say this, but so Irish, and not gas out after 2 rounds. He's got great precision and great strength through 2 rounds, and then after 2 rounds, it starts to slip from him a little bit. So when you see it slipping, then you start thinking, okay, it's going to be like the Diaz fight, or maybe it's going to be like the Khabib fight now. And now you've seen him get murked a few times by 2 different competitors with 2 different styles, slapping you in the face with Diaz, and then taking you to the ground and humiliating you like Khabib. Where is your strength now? And that's what I think he's going to have to find in his next 1 or 2 fights. Where is his strength going to come from to overcome his opponent like he did in Diaz 2? Does he have that for Khabib 2? I don't personally think so, even though I'm a huge McGregor fan. I just don't see it, but I hope he proves me wrong.
I think if he doesn't change his style, he'd have to end it quick.
Yes.
Have to get a KO. Really quick. Yeah, really quick. Because like you said, he does get a little winded. So
And he stunned Khabib during their first fight.
Yeah.
One time, though. One time for about 5 seconds. And that was it. So he better do it more than one time this next fight.
Yeah. So what's it like being in the radio, in the podcast? You said you have a fiance, so you're getting married. I'm about to get married May 26th.
Nice.
It's like, don't do it on days I'm home and she's home. So she's been a little grumpy the past couple of days because I've been doing podcast episodes. And I'm like, well, it's this or I'm going to be off doing my regular job, you know? So it's like, pick your poison. At least
Right.
I'm home. How does that affect you? Does she understand that this is your passion and she lets you do your thing?
Well, she understands I'm good at it, and that's the thing is, and not to say that your fiance does not. That's not what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
she understands where I've come from it, what I'm battling now with my disability, and that this is one of my escapes from my disability, and that I do it well.
Yeah.
So that's why she's so understanding, I think, about letting me and kind of giving that room. I shouldn't say letting. That's not either, it doesn't go either way, but more giving the room and the space. Like the setup you see here is basically all her. I mean, the laptop was the help. I have the softbox lights, my Logitech camera, my nice Rode Podcaster microphone, and the setup behind me is a great workup and
Yeah, you have a nice setup, dude, and your picture is really clear. I'm a little jealous.
Well, it's a good compilation between the two of us. We work well together. We offer good things for each other. So I think that, and I'm actually about to have her on the show. We're about to do an update episode for the music industry, for the cover band music industry, here in about a week. So I will have her on the show as well. But anyways, she feels fine about it because it's not impeding on anything we're doing. I'm at home full time. So when I'm doing my episodes or I'm working on Periscope or I'm on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, normally I'm doing that and she's not home yet. If there's a new story, I'll ask her, hey, this is what I've heard of so far today. Did you hear of anything in X, Y, or Z category? Oh, yeah, I heard about this. You might want to, and she'll even say, you might want to put this as an Instagram post because that's a hot story right now. And I will look it up, read it over real quick, and then post about it. Like I did with the Coachella story recently with Beyonce and Ariana Grande about who got paid more and how that all worked out. And so, I rely on her as much as when she needs it. If she's feeling down or if she's got a show or she's got something going, I'm right there in a heartbeat.
Man, so you're really involved in social media. I think that's where I gotta go. I need to step up my game in social media, but I feel my weakest point is social media.
Stay off of Twitter. Just stay off of Twitter. It's okay. And you could go through Twitter if you're doing Periscope and your update videos like I do. But yeah. Twitter is starting to fall by the wayside a little bit as far as updates. I feel that Instagram is really hot. And also, I would say some Facebook, if you have a Facebook business page and you constantly update it, once a week, you're updating with something. Either you're talking to people that follow you or that liked your page or, some kind of interaction. And then, of course, you can also schedule posts, which is nice in a few things where, in Facebook, you don't have to worry about it where if you're busy and you and your fiance are going out to a nice dinner, you've got something to go do, and a story is coming out and you have a picture and a setup for it, schedule that for the night of your date and it'll go up and you don't have to do a thing about it. So
yeah,
I that.
I have been using Facebook and I think Instagram are my two best sources. And Twitter, I haven't had any success in Twitter. Reddit, I'm starting to get into Reddit, and Reddit I'm having more success in Reddit, but that's a little tricky. It's a little more tricky than Facebook and Instagram to get everything right.
I would say Instagram, Facebook is fine, but like I said, if you're going to with what you do, if you're a podcaster, if you're a broadcaster, you're in the radio industry right now, whatever it is that you do. You have to get on LinkedIn and just update your profile on LinkedIn. Go download the app on your phone. Go ahead and update your profile to match. It'll go through line by line. You can match what jobs you've already had, what experience you have in your industry that you're involved in right now, And that will help a long way as to make certain connections and networking connections, in order to get you farther. Now, you can still help other people. It is a give and get type of deal here.
Mm-hmm.
But I've found that I have had to give, with LinkedIn, I've actually had to give less than what I've given. I've had to give less than what I've gotten.
Yeah.
Because of the ability to quickly do promos, do intros and outros for podcasts. You do something for their show. Oh, you have a show? Oh, you have a product? Here's an intro for your product. Boom, here's some background music for the intro to your product. Bang. Okay, now in exchange for that, I need you to interview me. Just do a quick 20-minute interview me about my thing, and then I will plug your product on my next show. No problem. Boom, done.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see how that
5
works.
minutes and we're done.
So do you charge them or no for what you do?
Introductory, if you're new, no. If for one thing, no. But if it's a podcast intro or outro that's going to be on a show for a long period of time, yes, I will charge $5 to $10 to do an intro. Not very much. I will for the station IDs. Yes, I charge radio stations or other podcasting like live streamings. I charge for station IDs. And then for company voicemails, I charge. So the only thing that I wouldn't introductory charge for is if you're a brand new business and you kind of want to get off the ground to see how it works for you, you're now listening to whatever radio, or you're now tuned in to this kind of hotline here on blah, 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 blah. And they hear that and they go, shit, I love it. Now they want one more, or they want this, or they've got a guy over here that knows they want something. Well, now I'm going to charge that guy for it.
Okay.
Because I got a good reference.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I work off of that.
That's good to know, because I'll give your name out if I hear anybody looking for that.
Hey, here's another quick drop for you guys. Excuse me, my throat's a little sore. Here's another quick drop for you guys is on Fiverr. That's also where I work too. So if anybody wants to go there as well as yourself, you can go there, JCT Podcast on Fiverr, and that is where I'm located to do any kind of services already named.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I've heard of Fiverr before, but I've never been on it. See, I need to get myself.
You are brand new.
Yeah, I got to get myself into the social media a little bit. It's kind of good, though, that you're moving on with the times, because you started out in radio, and it seems like radio's starting to not die out completely,
right.
But podcasts are becoming the new thing, I guess, is the next step in evolution.
They are, but if you have somebody good behind you, too, though, you have to realize that. Like, Joe Rogan is not famous on a podcast because he's just some guy that's good at podcasting. No, He's famous because he started doing... he was doing UFC announcing a commentary. Plus, he was doing Fear Factor. He's well known for Fear Factor. Then he comes on and he's known in the MMA world for holding like a black belt and being very, very good at it, but never committing to fighting in the UFC. And then being a podcaster. So it's like he already had a wealth of backing, and then came on and said, "Guys, I'm going to start my own show. And can we get if it does well within the first few months, can we get sponsors?" Yes, we can. So it's like there is always a good thing to radio. Like if I was backed by ESPN or 670 The Score, which are the two main sports stations here in Chicagoland, if I was backed by one of those, you wouldn't see 80 subscribers on YouTube. You wouldn't see 150 followers on Twitter. Backed with what I do and who I interview, I'm sure those would be in the thousands at least.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's all because of who's got your back. So it does matter. And that's also, like I'm saying, where LinkedIn comes in, because you find LinkedIn members and network connections and Facebook groups as well that work for these different media outlets that could really help you. Hey, I need advice on this, or I'm trying to get a job. I just applied. You know that I do good work and I interviewed you or whatever it is. Hey, I do good work. Could you maybe put in a good word for me? And that's it. That's how I got with 670 The Score recently to reply again to it. Is another one of my interview guests gave me the email to the hiring director.
Oh, wow.
So directly to the guy. So now I'm in contact back and forth, and I'm also doing, because of that, I'm also doing some minor league baseball PA announcing work this summer.
Oh wow, congratulations. So is that your first passion? Obviously you have the Cubs in the background. Is it baseball? Is
It
that
is. It
yeah.
is. I grew up playing until I got hurt. I mean, I hate to say this, but I idolized Ken Griffey Jr. Of the Seattle Mariners. He was a lefty like me. He played center field. I tried to have not necessarily the swag that he had, but just the mechanics of how do you make a swing so easy, and how is it that you're running down baseballs and jumping walls so easily, and how did you get there? And that's what I tried to imitate and emulate as I was playing baseball until I hurt my arm. So it's definitely a first love of mine, and I can't wait to go. I have a couple games I'm seeing this year. I'm not a White Sox fan. My fiance is, but we are going to Comiskey later next month for actually right around the time that you're going that you're getting married.
Yeah.
we'll be at Comiskey. It's her brother's birthday, and we're taking him out to that park for a game. And then later on, the Crosstown later this year for Cubs Sox. This year, because we alternate every other year, this year we're going to Wrigley, so I get to have a little fun.
Oh wow. I don't know. I don't know if I ever see him again, but I went to school with Aaron Judge, the New York rookie. Was it
Really?
last year? Yeah. But if I ever see him in Linden, because it's a little tiny town, and he lives right next to my parents. His parents live next to my parents. If I ever see him, I'll tell him about your show.
Dang. Yeah, tell his parents, and I'll contact his agent. Hey, talk to your buddy of yours. That's how we do it, though. I mean,
He's a really nice kid. Him and his adopted brother, they're both adopted children.
Okay.
The parents couldn't have kids, and his brother that they won the lottery adopting these kids because obviously he's a sports superstar now.
Right.
And his brother is this like 5.0 like super genius, like a scientist type guy. It's pretty crazy. They won the lotto in that adoption.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so for sure. Aaron Judge is a great talent. You have people that play now. I mean, when I'm thinking of best outfielders, I automatically put Judge in the best outfielders right now of this current era. I would say Judge, Trout. I mean, I guess Harper. Harper is more an at the plate threat than he is in the outfield because I think any kind of bloop ball, he kind of, and I hate to say it like this, but he kind of gives up on a little. I feel like he was raised in a world of like kids that I was raised around, kind of like that, where it's everybody tells you you're great all the time, and it starts to get to your head, and then you miss a routine play, and everybody hates you for it. I feel like that's what Bryce Harper is. He's a great talent, but he's not a talent that's ever going to win a World Series. Even in Philly, I don't think Philly will get back to a series. But I see the Yankees trying to break through. I see, well, obviously Boston with the best record in the MLB last year, getting there another ring. And then who else did I say? Mike Trout, the Angels. The Angels. Oh, boy. This is a team of not underachievers, but underachieving management. Underachieving management. Because if you look at the talents that come through there, Albert Pujols, I know he's past his prime, but you have Albert Pujols, Mike Trout, and a Shohei Ohtani on the same team, and you guys can't make a World Series.
Yeah, Trout.
You guys can't make an ALCS.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe they need to get better coaching or something. I don't know.
Well, I'd say better picking of players around and then go to your coach and say, okay, now we've put all this talent around you that can do what they're meant to do. Go out there and really make them, get them to the point that they can go deep in a playoff run, like Theo Epstein and Joe Madden did with the Cubs. So it started in 2011. Terrible. 2015, they turn around like a 20-game turnaround, and they go to the NLCS. Now they get swept, and then they win a World Series, and then they go NLCS, and then this last year they were out in the wild card game. But we're hoping that wasn't their peak. But there are things like with the Yankees, they have a formula right now, and the players right now that if they squander this opportunity, I would say that the Yankees deserve to be getting made fun of. Kind of like the Cubs are right now. I think the Yankees deserve to get made fun of if they squander an opportunity within the next 2 seasons. They don't win a World Series. I don't see why they wouldn't. They would get in their own way to not get to a World Series at least.
Yeah, I agree with that one because they have everything right now. They're kind of like the Patriots. They can do it for a couple years. But I before I forget, this is one of the questions I've been wanting to ask you since I was going to have you on my show. Today, well, it started in about 2004, I want to say, when I was in high school, 2003, 2004.
Okay.
The kids were starting to get participation trophies. What do you feel about that? Just participating and them not winning. I know it was just starting. We were seniors. We made it to sections championship in football. And some people, they got rightful awards, for doing good things. But then everyone else on the team was going to get an award just for participating. And our coaches were like, you better not take those guys. So
I see it as one or the other. I see it as kind of like a mix of old mentality of thinking that you have to berate somebody to make them good. That is just not, at least it didn't work for me. People that got on my case growing up playing baseball and basketball, by the way, but baseball mainly. When I played baseball, if people got on me, I would already get on myself so hard that anything extra would make me depressed about it, not knowing, of course, what I had back then, but like it would make me extra depressed and I wouldn't be able to function. And then I'd go out there and I'd strike out my next at bat, or I'd miss, like Bryce Harper, I'd miss a routine play out in center field. So it's like, does it work anymore really? Because, times are changing. I hate to say this, people don't want to let go of this, I guess, but times are changing. There are people that are able to admit now that they have a different mental makeup, or they don't necessarily receive information the same way that somebody in 1950 did. And I think that's a hard concept for older generations to grasp, is that younger generations don't receive information the same way. Not that they're weaker, they don't receive information the same way, because there were plenty of suicides and plenty of cases of depression and bipolar and other kinds of things back then, but people just didn't want to talk about it. It was just not a talked about subject, but then that allowed people to commit suicide and die. So what I'm saying is, now that people are talking about it, now an older generation wants to look at them and say, you're weak. You just want participation trophies, so here. And no, I don't necessarily agree. If one person on a team carried that team to a championship, I don't think for participating, you're like, here's an equal opportunity award for everybody else that participated. No, that's why there's things called the MVP. Yes, you do have a most valuable player, and if it's a guy on your team that led your team, then yeah, he gets that trophy. He or she would get that trophy. Yeah. Now, if you guys win a title of some sort, yes, you as a team then are seen as the champions. So you won that title. Cool. But yes, the only thing I disagree with people getting what you call participation trophies is if, let's say, a third place team, I know you're supposed to do, like even in the Olympics, you're supposed to do gold, silver, bronze. But in baseball, when you're growing up and you're in junior leagues, you only have a first and second place because you have a championship game. You don't give it was no medals or anything given to a third place team, the one that didn't make the finals. So that would be the only thing I disagree with, is a third place team getting a trophy for not getting to the final game. But other than that, no, I don't. I think because kids, as long as you're not saying you got a participation trophy and you're telling your kid, guy or girl, you're telling your kid you're the best because you got a trophy, period. As long as you're not saying that, we got to stop thinking that kids are so stupid as to think that because they got a trophy, they're the best. Where they might not say it to you, but somewhere deep in the back of their mind, they know that they got a participation trophy. They know they didn't get the championship trophy. They know they didn't win the MVP. So they're already kind of hard on themselves in their own little slight ways, that if you help them improve their game in whatever sports they're in, I think that would go a long way. So nobody would even care about participation trophies, because at the end of the day, the next year, more than likely the guys who got the participation awards are the ones that are hoisting the championship trophy at the end.
That actually makes a lot of sense the way you put it. I've always been in the middle. I've never really had an opinion, but you actually make a lot of sense. Whereas, where you don't want to demoralize your players even more because you want them to come back next year. You want them to improve. You want them to keep getting better and better, and you don't want to tear them down and never see them again. And also, like you said, people with that are already overly hard on themselves, you don't want them to hurt themselves or, take up drugs or start fighting, becoming bullies. So that actually makes a lot of sense. But another thing while you were saying that, what was popping into my head was, to get someone on your team that breaks a record. It's not just him doing it all by himself in like a sport like soccer or football, because it takes a whole team to give him the best chance to achieve that goal. So actually, everybody is a part of that. So
for the most part, in basketball, that would be true if you're an assist leader, obviously. If you're the points leader, yes. But for like home run leader of a junior league,
baseball.
No, that's you. Yeah, that's you. And I mean, yes, you could scan out and say that it was, if you branch out and say that it was the other players that had good quality at bats that got this guy up the majority of times, then I could see that. But other than that, no, there are a couple sports that, yes, it does really branch on, like individual awards really are team awards. But I would say the MVP is the hardest one to say team award. Like in basketball, you're talking Steph Curry. He won back-to-back. In baseball, you have who won last year? Christian Yelich. His teammates didn't make him win the MVP. He won the MVP by beating out the Cubs' Javi Baez just barely at the end of the season last month. Because I think if Javi Baez has a great September, that Christian Yelich does not win the MVP for last year. But yeah, I mean, there's ways to motivate players and athletes in a different way. Don't go to one extreme and praise them consistently or constantly rather, and thinking they're the stuff. But at the same time, don't also crap on them so much that they have no motivation to continue and want to leave. And say, well, it's not just about proving you wrong anymore, coach, but it's about, I don't want this kind of pressure. I want to do something else with my life. I'm going to leave the sport that I've been playing for 12 years. So that's something I think a lot of coaches nowadays consider. And that's why a lot of high school coaches now are a lot easier on their players. I would say a lot easier than what coaches were when I was in high school.
Yeah. I think so too, and I think coaches nowadays are letting the weaker players participate more. Also, I'm kind of seeing that when I go to these games in my towns, my local teen games at high schools, because my mom has a coffee business and we go and cater coffees, espressos at football games. So I get to see people playing football and I could see the coaches, they're switching out players more often. Whereas when I played, it was all just the best players. It was all, Well,
again, same with when I played. It was, if I didn't hit the ball well enough, I was going to be on the bench. Or I might not even make the team. It's there. Yeah, there's different sets of motivation that can come from that. And I hope that coaches aren't just saying, well, we want to be equal opportunity, so we're going to let everybody in. But my point to the equal opportunity thing for later in the season is, if you win as a team, but there's an MVP, yeah, in a way I get it if somebody else gets a medal around their neck or whatever it is. Cool. But I don't think they take that medal, like I said before, they don't take that medal that seriously. They see the guy standing on the pedestal with the MVP award and went, I want that. Yeah. And I just think that you are going to find those cases where there are less motivated individuals that are involved in sports, and then unfortunately those guys need to be cut. But if the coaches can't cut them, then, and if they're not allowed to cut them, and that's the other thing. A lot of programs nowadays, high school and college, are not allowed to cut certain players because of either they got a ride, they got a scholarship, or they whatever, and they're not allowed to cut them, and they might be way worse than someone else that has a lot of talent that got there and paid their own way to get there and is the starting center fielder. Well, this guy over here on the bench got a starting full ride scholarship and has turned out to be a bust, and you can't cut him because administration says no.
Wow, I didn't know that's going on.
That happens with a lot of college sports for sure.
Oh, geez. Yeah. My friend, he got a scholarship for a full ride, and then they knocked it down to half because he ended up being second string. But that's a while back now. That's over 10 years ago. It's been like 14 years ago. But I didn't know that was going on. You taught me something new today.
I try. What else you got for me?
A couple of things. One personal and one about sports again. So we'll do the sports still.
Okay.
How do you feel? Because obviously I like Joe Rogan. You probably listen to Joe Rogan too sometimes.
I do.
And he's very against having transgenders in female sports. You know, how do you feel about that? Where transgendered men turning into women are now participating in female sports and they're breaking records. And then in MMA, that one transgendered, I forget his name, but he fractured the skull of his opponent. How do you feel? What's your opinion since you're so heavily into the sports world?
I agree with Joe on this. I think that if you're genetically and biologically a male and you're trying to transition yourself and not physically transition yourself, but you're taking, maybe you take estrogen or you take whatever it is, and that's fine, but you're not a full woman. You are genetically and biologically a guy trying to go into a female sport. And if, like in MMA, Fox, and if you go as a male into a female sport and they let you do it, they're idiots. Like in MMA, like in track. If you're biologically a male, you are biologically meant to outdo the female counterpart. I don't want to hear the argument men can do everything women can do everything men can do. It's not freaking true. It's just not. Genetically, it's not true. So if you can't fight against genetics. So that's, and the main point would be letting a male, an ex male fighter who was crap as a male come over and fight the females and beat the living shit out of them. But in any other sense, it would be battery and assault in the real world. But in this, it's a transgender athlete going into the women's MMA divisions. So I think that with that, and also my other main thing was those two guys that said they feel like girls and they feel like they're girls, which I have no problem with them feeling like that at all. But when you then go and say, because I feel this way, but I'm genetically made to outdo this counterpart that I'm going to be racing against, it is very unfair for those two guys then to go and race against all girls in like track and field, because you will win every single time. You will win. One of those two guys will win their races every single time because they are genetically faster than all the girls.
Yeah, and it's
the
other
biological girls.
And it's almost like these women that juice, so they're taking steroids to get bigger, stronger. But it's the same thing as males, is we naturally have a high testosterone.
Right.
And, if you're transgendering at the age of 30 and, at age 32, you're now becoming an MMA or you're a pro wrestler or like you said, running or bicycle or swimming, anything. It's like you've had 30 years of nonstop testosterone. And if a woman had 30 years of testosterone, it'd be her cheating that she's, taking steroids.
Right.
So it doesn't seem fair for the females. And what I don't get is a lot of these women, they call themselves feminists, but yet they're letting these genetically male people that are transitioning enter their sports and beat them, break the records. And I just don't understand. And they don't even follow the science behind it. They say, well, they think they're female, so they're female.
Right.
And I get that, but they're not taking into account the science part of it either. And
Well, that's the same thing with the WNBA, thinking that they're as equal a product as the NBA, and it's just not possible.
Yeah.
Because not more than probably a handful of the women in the WNBA can actually dunk, and when they don't dunk convincingly. And there's there's a few people that can cross over pretty well that I've seen in the WNBA, and I only mean a few that can convincingly cross over. But it's because genetically we are meant as men to be able to like modify ourselves to be quick, to be stronger. Our ancestors were providing food and going out and hunting while the females were in the cave taking care of the children. And for real, not saying females should stay in the cave and take care of the children. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, don't think because your name is your sport says W, but it has NBA after it, does not mean you are the same. Does not mean that you should earn the same money because you have sunk profits year after year since your inception. And the NBA has basically held you up and above water for your entire existence so far. So if you can't exist on your own, and all the major networks the NBA has tried to get you on in the last few years are refusing because it's not getting the numbers it's supposed to on TV, and the attendance in the stadiums are down, and none of the athletes are really, really active on social media and promoting their own brand, as well as the commercials and other things they've been involved with. Why then are they equal? How are they equal? And they're not. That's the honest truth. But people don't want to admit that because a lot of guys were brought up told, don't insult a female. Don't say something nasty or perceived as nasty, or where the female will get upset about it. Don't say that kind of shit to them. And that is where I think us realists come in, is we're not afraid to say, listen, genetically we're different. You're not as entertaining because you're genetically different. It's okay. There are other sports, there are other avenues that go down that benefit females more than males too, that are particularly female dominated, which is fine. And then you come over and you look at, like I was saying, like the NBA and WNBA, nothing. Yeah. I don't then agree though with a female not being able to play in, or not being allowed to play right now, or not being drafted by, if you're a college athlete and you are good at baseball, and you decide I'm a female and I don't want to do softball because I want to try my hand at baseball that I've been playing and taught all my life up until high school and college, where they decided to then transfer and divide the male and female, then I would say in baseball in particular, let's try this out as an experiment. One of the best female baseball players into high school, take them into baseball in high school, not softball. Then in college, same thing. And if they're really good, like you would take a top prospect anywhere else, take them on as a prospect and see how they do in a system full of males. And if they sink, then we know, because you will see the best of the best of the females that was great at baseball or great at a particular sport that is known to be male dominated. And they came in and either did well and kept up, or did really badly, like a Danica Patrick in racing, and fell behind. It's going to be one or the other. There is no middle ground there. So I would say do that and see what happens. And if it doesn't go well, then okay, I guess. But it's not that it already didn't go well and they're saying, well, screw it. It's they're not giving it a chance, I feel. And like I said, I will focus on baseball because that's what I know the most.
Yeah.
Basketball is too physical because a female versus a male in basketball, that would be domination all up and down the court. Same with football. Same with hockey. So I would say baseball would be your one go-to. Baseball would be the one go-to to try this out and see if females can transition from, no pun intended, by the way, that I really didn't mean to say it like that, but like what I meant was go from playing baseball all your life, then being transitioned to softball. Instead of that, be transitioned to stay in baseball.
Yeah.
And try to grow as a player. And if you do, and you get into the MLB or even a woman, even a female that got drafted by a team and was a prospect in AA baseball.
Yeah.
Is fine. That is a huge start to things. That I agree with. Other things, no. You know, there was a few WNBA players. We don't get paid as much. We want the same percentage, you know, not the same money, but the same percentage of the league revenue. Well, there's no league revenue, so you get what you get, unfortunately. If there was league revenue, you could split that league revenue. That if you're standing alone on your own as a league, you could split that revenue between the players. But you can't because the NBA is holding you up.
That actually makes a lot of sense. And I think it's okay not to be the same. You know, females don't have to be the same as males. It's okay to be different in certain aspects. And I also agree, if we were going to test out anything in sports, it'd probably be baseball, because I feel like it's less one-on-one physical. If, like you said, in basketball, you're going to be running into these brick-hard men, and they're going to fall over. You know, same with football. Football, maybe you could start females off in kicking. I could see that working. I know a lot of high schoolers that have female kickers. Soccer's pretty brutal. Have you ever seen these women play soccer? They're mean. I'd say they're even more mean than the men.
Well, they're mean until you come up again with a person who's got X amount of pounds on you, is genetically engineered to wipe you off the face of the earth, basically, on a competitive level. And even when it comes to soccer, I can't. The best female soccer players in the world, I don't think would beat, obviously, the best soccer players in the world as far as male counterparts, because you have the Messis and Cristiano Ronaldo, and you have, you know, Neymar. You've got Ibrahimovic here in the MLS. Like, you have Wayne Rooney. You think even an aged Wayne Rooney, you think the best female soccer player right now in the world is going to beat Wayne Rooney?
Yeah, no.
And he's aged. So, and for people that are going to hate on this in any kind of comments or whatever, and are going to tell me that I'm being sexist and that women can do whatever, no, listen to this. You can't. I'm sorry. You know what's proof of that? Because and I hate to say this because I'm white, but all the white women that I deal with that say this, my one proof is that a lot of black athletes are a lot more athletic, physically, than a lot of their white counterparts. Well, you go into the world of female tennis, and you have the Williams sisters. Serena Williams, one of the most dominant female competitors ever, and her sister, she played somebody outside the top 200, I think it was, a while back, years ago. She played someone out of the top 200 in her prime.
Yeah, and she got killed.
She got killed, and her sister got killed. The two biggest names you can really think of, or top three of women's tennis. Went through a few different sports there. Of women's tennis, got whooped in consecutive sets by an outside of the top ranked 200 player in male tennis. So yes, that is my main focal point of focusing, is saying, if that happened to the best, why would we think that would be any different with, like, soccer?
Yeah, that was a pretty good example. And, you know, there has been studies done too where men have a quicker reaction time, and it's just genetics. Like you said, it's just genetics. You can't get around that. I don't know. Men are taller. They're usually more muscular. It's just different. You don't have to be the same at everything, like you said. And I don't see why people... But what if these transgendered men that used to be men and now they're turning into women, what if we just kept them in the men's sports? Like, why is that such an issue? Why do they have to go to female sports?
They don't have to. They feel like they have to. And I think... I don't think any kind of management or any kind of league that they're trying to apply to be in, I don't think the male counterpart to that league is giving any they're not giving any, like, blowback for it. Mm-hmm. They're just saying, I don't want to get involved in this. It's transgender athletes and they want to go do what they want to do, and I feel that I'll get in trouble if I say something. No, say they should say it. If you feel it, say they should stay in. If you're a front office guy, say, I believe these transgender athletes that are physically and biologically men that would dominate in a female sport should stay in the male sport because that is what they are originally.
Yeah.
And that is how they are built. They're not built like strong females. They're built like strong guys.
Yeah.
And then they would be competing in a female sport. Or the female counterpart of the sport. So it's like, I would say it. If I was a front office guy, I would probably get a lot of shit for it, but that's what today's world is. It is a reactionary world. It really is in a lot of ways. Even with the rise of social media in the last few years, what you do have is you have movements popping up. And I do agree with a lot of movements like Black Lives Matter and Me Too make sense where they started. And then you have people trying to look at those movements that actually made sense to start and then saying, well, we're going to be overly emotional about everything. Every issue that is minor or major that comes up, I'm going to overreact on social media about everything. And that's where we run into a problem, is when you decide as a human being to overreact about everything, then something like the transgender debate in sports makes you uncomfortable, and that shouldn't make you uncomfortable. It should be an actual debate. It should be an actual discussion of, are these biological males that feel like they're females mentally and want to be females physically later on in life, should they be allowed to compete in a sport, in the counterpart of the sport that they want to be in, with females that are genetically not engineered like they are, that they could just walk all over and they could rack up stats left and right on? Do we really even count those stats? Because it's not another biological female getting these stats over other females, or in the male counterpart, it's not another male getting these stats over male counterparts. So it needs to be evaluated that way, I feel. It's not it's not like with our current president, this guy in office, I won't even name him, this guy in office who wants transgender people out of the military.
Yeah.
That's a different story. I don't think because you're a guy and you feel like you want to transition to a woman that you should be kicked out of the military. Oh, it's cost. It's that. No, it's homophobia, one, in certain cases. And also, I feel that a lot of people are afraid of what they don't understand.
Yeah.
If they don't deal with it on a day-to-day basis, they're afraid of it automatically. And I think that's what drives this fear, like for the military issue that I was bringing up. That's what drives that, is we're going to look for any reason to hate on somebody, so let's do this. And but in sports, when it's competing for a trophy and you're not putting your life on the line to do so. When you're competing for a trophy in basketball, baseball, whatever, that transgender discussion should be at hand every single time.
So
that is a big issue.
Let's transition, and no pun intended, into the Olympics.
Sure.
We're almost at the end of the podcast episode, but how do you feel this is going to change Olympics in the near future? Because I feel like we're going to start seeing transgenders try to join and become Olympians. How do you think that's going to affect Olympics? Do you think it's going to be accepted worldwide? And do you think the Russians and the Chinese are also going to enter their transgendered athletes? And I don't even think they like transgenders in their country, to be honest. I think they would do it on purpose just to break records and get gold medals.
Well, yes, it would be purely for a lot of other countries. It would be purely for, like you said, it would be purely to win. It would be purely to beat other countries. That it wouldn't have anything to do, because there are a lot of people that don't like transgender people, and which is ridiculous, but they just don't like them because they're afraid of, like I said, what they don't understand. So because they don't like them, they would still say, if this person over here is going to give my country the best shot at winning a gold medal and bringing honor to my country in one way, shape, or form, I think they would do it. If they don't, then they're idiots. But I think that, or I would hope that doesn't happen for any country, only because it would open the door for a lot of male feeling like they're female to go over and dominate the female. But again, if it opens the doors for every country and they all do it, then I wouldn't say anything, because then you would have males that feel like they're females or other way around competing in those sports or those arenas at the same Olympics. And so if it would have to be an all or nothing to me. Because
But
if it was
then-
just a few, then it wouldn't make any sense and it would be kind of one-sided.
So obviously you're a realist, so you would think that maybe they should have their own. There should be males, females, and transgenders most likely, for it to all be even. But if if everyone allows transgenders and we don't have that third bracket,
Right.
a competition bracket, then it's gonna make women extinct. And I think extinct in the Olympics. I think there will be less women. Except for things maybe like ice skating, figure skating.
Nope. And you have to think though, when they're on the mat doing their gymnastic routines, a lot of those are built for genetic women, are built for strong but women, genetic women, because of the size of your body, of the size of your legs, like everything comes into play there. So I think a transgender that was trying to be female, and go over and do a gymnastics routine, I think they would fail. I think they would lose out in those specific ones that are made and tailored to females. Yeah. I think, that's where they would lose out. But yes, when it comes to like judo and these other like swimming, yes, that's where you would lose. When it becomes a physical competition and it's just a pure physical competition, it has nothing to do with your body has to be physically tailored to like gymnastics. Yeah. Then all the other original females would lose. Yes.
Yeah.
They would get blown out. So, unfortunately, I think that day may be coming. But that's why I hope they do it where they know it's a mix. Where there's transgender, there's females that want to be male that are competing in male sports. There's male that want to be female that are competing in female sports. Great, do that, but it's got to be an all or nothing thing. It can't just be one or the other, because then again, one or the other is going to get blown out.
That makes sense. And for the last question of my show, it's going to get a little personal.
Nice.
How do you feel since you came out on my episode and you said you have a type of bipolar? I'm not really familiar with bipolar other than it's kind of like a mood swing issue. And you're into sports. I'm guessing there's a lot of athletes out there that have bipolar. How do you think that affects them? And do you think they're medicated when they're, playing their sports?
Some, not all. And a few that I know of right off the top of my head are like current and former like great wide receivers for the NFL. Odell Beckham Jr., I believe, has bipolar disorder. I know Brandon Marshall does. He used to play for the Bears, played for Denver Broncos. He played for a few teams. But Brandon Marshall, wide receiver, I know he has it. But before he knew he had it, it was a train wreck of a situation because he's going through life trying to battle with a mental illness while dealing with the pressure and the, like you said, the jacked up testosterone filled, NFL. So he's trying to grow up through that and learn how to deal with those kind of coaches and his teammates and whatever else, at the same time being mentally ill and not knowing it and trying to deal with both at the same time. That is I would imagine that's very difficult. So there are quite a few athletes that deal with mental illness, like severe mental illness, I will say. I feel each one of us have something, like a little tick of something, but you'll see it more severely when extenuating circumstances really are forced on an individual. So for those athletes, I don't think they're medicated. I don't think some of them are medicated. I think some of them know they have something and are not going to the lengths to properly educate themselves and or medicate or therapy or whatever it is that they need to kind of find a medium. Because if they find a medium, then they're able to go out and perform well at what they do, what they're getting paid to do. Instead of it being, I'm going out there, people know me for my brash, personality and my attitude, and that's what I'm going to keep doing. I don't give a F about anybody else, and I'm not going to take the medication and screw therapy and screw this and screw that. And then you crash like Odell Beckham and you end up on the Browns. Like that's my issue, is that you have a guy like Odell Beckham Jr., who is a great talent. A few years ago, he was a great talent at wide receiver, had fallen off since he started having some on and off field issues. And here he goes. He's punching punting nets, and like it started spiraling, and I could see it. I could see the spiral, like you witnessed it live on TV. And then and now he's on the Browns. So
And what, in your opinion, what do you think is the best middle of the road factor? Do you think therapy would be good for these people? Because a lot of people would say, well, I don't like the medicines because they make me drowsy, or, so I'm not going to play as good. So what would be your advice that you think in your head?
Depending, I mean, it kind of has to be a case-by-case basis with the players, with the athletes. But I would say yes. First off, therapy is a given, because if you are going through some kind of mental illness and it's hard to deal with that, you're balancing that, and some of these people have families, then you're doing that. Plus, you're over here and you're playing a pro sport, so you've got that kind of pressure on you. So you've got a whole bunch of pressure on you from whatever angle, and you need somewhere to release that pressure without getting physical, without doing something stupid and blowing your money on drugs or whatever it is that eventually is going to happen, that's going to make you spiral down, or happen in the event of a spiral. I think therapy is first, and then case-by-case basis, see what helps them. I know you're supposed to take medications and therapy and then everything else. Well, that would work for somebody like me who has kind of an everyday life. If I do my interviews, maybe I don't take it that morning medication that morning so I can have enough energy to get through the interview. Great. But for the most part, it is, I have to stick to a plan, because I don't think I have any choice in my case. But if you ask me and I'm playing for an MLB team, I would say I'm probably going to skip on the medications too. And I'll probably try therapy first, because I would rather talk to somebody rather than take medications that are going to make me drowsy, like you said, although that could also end up in a depressive episode. You have no idea where that's going to lead if you're not medicated either. So it's kind of a crapshoot as far as
And do you think the coaching staff and the other players that know what's going on behind the scenes, do you think they okay, so-and-so's having a bad day today, just everybody give them space? Because I know one of my clients, I'm a horseshoer. I go around to farms putting shoes on horse hooves. And one of my clients, he'll call me sometimes if I'm expected to be there. He'll say, hey, I'm having a bipolar episode. Don't come today. I'll call you in a few days. And so is that something, do you think that behind the scenes that sports teams are doing this for their players, is everybody give him a wide berth? No?
No, because I think the players aren't being honest. I think it has to start with the players, and I don't think that most of them are being honest with either themselves or their coaches or whatever. They know they might have something wrong with them, or something not even wrong with them, but I will say something going on that they're struggling with, that they know that it'll look like weakness to the other players, or they're embarrassed, or because there is a big stigma around mental illness. So if you take that stigma and then you multiply it to a testosterone-driven NFL or NBA or MLB, yeah, that has a lot of effect on who you tell and how you handle going about it. So I might not tell, if I'm a Major League Baseball player, I might not tell my coach that I've had an episode, or that I hate to go this down the rabbit hole serious about it, but let's say this morning I was thinking about like suicide. You're contemplating suicide, and at 10 o'clock you're playing a game. That's not, that's not a good mix. You have to let somebody know. You have to erase, and that's the biggest thing for myself and NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. I am a member of here in the Chicagoland area. And one of the biggest thing is help us raise awareness and fight the stigma. And the fighting the stigma is, people are afraid when they find out, or if they don't know, they know something's wrong with them, but they don't know how to find out or how to ask questions. And it's raising awareness about it and saying, listen, you can't just sit on the sidelines and not say anything, because if you don't, that's how we lose people. That's how people commit suicide. That's how people go on, benders. That's how people go and end up on the news consistently, by doing bad things, because they're not taking care of their mental health, and then it goes and affects every other aspect of their life. And people are like, well, they're so quick to say, well, that person's so crazy, they're acting so nuts. It's like, well, no, that person was unfortunately stupid with ignorant of what they were dealing with, and not knowing how to, some cases they're ignorant of what they're dealing with, and not knowing how to go about dealing with it and getting help for it, and now they're ultimately paying consequences.
Yeah, for a year, I was the first to arrive on a scene where my cousin had crashed her vehicle. We were all trying to find her because she was supposed to be at our house. So we're backtracking the way she would come to my house. And I was first on scene. I thought she was dead. And so I had like panic attacks for like 6-7 months, like every other day. And it was like high anxiety. I didn't want to drive. I'd go to school back, or college and back, or go to work and back. And I wouldn't go anywhere else because I was afraid to drive. And so I got that anxiety, that high anxiety, those panic attacks. And when you have those episodes, you can't control it. They just come on. It's like a light switch, and it feels like there's nothing you can do. And what really helped me personally was talking to someone, just venting, going to see a therapist. And I was lucky, I didn't have to stay on anxiety meds for longer than a year. But I really appreciated my therapist. Therapy really, really helped. And I think, like you said, people need to be aware. And if they have friends or family members, or if they're a coach and they have their players, they need to be able to listen to them, and you need to let people know that you're there for them, and you can't make fun of them. Like, why are you being so fucking crazy today?
Well, and that's unfortunately what they're raised in too. They're raised in that mentality of, you make fun of other kids, you jab at other kids, and unfortunately that needs to be separated from competitive mentality. That's what's seen as competitive mentality. You're making fun of other people, you're jabbing at other people, you don't really give a shit stuff. So pardon about the cursing, but you don't give any, you don't give a care about how they feel about it or what they may be going through, because guess what? You just want to win a game. And I think if that was taken out, I know that people would argue with me about that being taken out of a learning curve, but you have to understand, in this day and age, if it is taken out, that may actually end up helping a majority of people, rather than it being the other way around, where they're made fun of for other stuff in their life growing up. All of a sudden, here they come and they find out that they're bipolar, or they find out that they're schizophrenic, or whatever it is, and they don't want to tell anybody because they have never received any good news from anyone. They've never said anything good about their life from anyone they've ever been around in their mind. So they don't want to come out to anyone about it. And I do say come out, like I'm talking about, like homosexuality or whatever else, because really that's kind of what it is in a way, not to the same extent in a lot of families, but to the extent of the stigma around mental illness, it does have an effect on, who you're willing to tell and how long you're willing to keep it a secret.
Yeah, and then a lot of athletes and celebrities, they start doing drugs. They start self-medicating, which isn't the correct thing to do.
Correct.
And it's really sad. And like you said, they kill themselves. So I don't know. I agree with you. Everybody needs to be a little bit more aware with that, and have a little bit more compassion. I'd like to thank you for being on my show, Patrick. And I will definitely tell people about your voice if I have them on my show. Like, I have a lady that I just interviewed the other day, Tranisha, and she helps small business owners. So actually, it'd be really good if she knew your name and your links, your LinkedIn, so that she can give her clients also your name. So if they want some commercial or whatever they're doing, to have your voiceovers, that'd be really good.
Yeah, so, I'd appreciate it. And that's what I was talking about before, is that, I have the JCT podcast now, which is my interview series, but I figured do more of an update series on because of the way that the Instagram, and like I was telling you, a few of the hotter social media outlets are going. I figure I was changing the name here soon to, instead of JCT podcast, it's JTT show, which is JTT, which Just the Truth show, which is all about personal opinions. And the joke about it is because it's my personal opinions on different subjects coming up, and that's sports, music, movies, whatever else. And then, of course, like you said, networking. You could find me at Patrick Voss at LinkedIn, and you can check out, it's the same as like my other social medias. My other social media accounts, you can find me at JTT Show, and I will be available for contact on any of those.
Yeah, if you want to actually send me the links, all your links, if you have a list, if you just copy paste them somewhere,
sure.
And I'll put it in my little info section under our videos on YouTube and stuff, and Facebook.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Patrick. You have a good day.
You too.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to find out more about Killing the Void podcast, you can visit our website at www.killingthevoid.com. You will find links to download our latest episodes. Thank you and have a good day.